Hi, this is Steve Smith with Falafel Software. In this quick video, we're going to take a look at how to use Git branching to improve the development of your software projects. This video builds off of the work we did in the previous video in this series on Git basics. You might want to check that one out first and then come back here if you haven't seen it already. In this video, we're going to cover how to use branching from the command line, some different branching strategies to use for your software projects, how to use branching with the tool SourceTree, and a hands-on exercise. Let's get started. I'm already in the repository that we started in the last video. And to work in the command line with branching, all you have to know is the git branch command, but there's also a shortcut to create a branch and immediately shift to it because you do that all the time. So we'll show that one first. So if you do git checkout-b, this is going to create a branch, and then give it a name, like new branch. Now you can see from here in the command prompt, you'll see that we're on this new branch and no longer on master. This is the same as if we had created the branch and then checked it out. So if we switch back to master, we're back to master. We could have done the same thing by saying git branch something else, and then moving to it. Like that. Now at this point, we can go ahead and if we switch back to our new branch, we can add some files to this. So we can go in here and just create a new file with Notepad. And if we do a git status, we'll see that we've got our file there. We'll add it. We see the status, now we see that it's being added. We're ready to commit. And at this point we have completed a commit on the new branch. Now if we're deciding that we're building a feature or something, or we're fixing a bug in this branch, we get to the point where we're ready to put it back on master. The next thing you need to be able to do is to merge it. So to do that, you want to switch to the branch where you want to merge it. So we'll switch back to master. And then we can merge that branch. Now if you already had some uncommitted changes in that branch, you would want to commit them first, or you could stash them. We're not going to have time to cover stashing in this video, but just realize that you won't be able to do this step if you've got work that's in progress on your branch. But assuming that everything's already committed and we're ready to just accept it in master, we can just do git merge master, and now that will pull, we can just do git merge and then the name of the branch. So we're on master, so we're going to say git merge new branch, and that will perform the merge of our branch back into master. And if we do a git status, we'll see everything looks good. Typically if you're going to do a branch for a particular bug fix or for a particular feature, once you get to the point where you're done with that, you're done with that branch. You're not going to go back to it. So we can delete that branch at this point. So we can say git branch -d for delete and remove it. So now let's come back to our slides for a moment and talk a little bit about branching strategies. With branching, there's a few different ways that you can think of it. And this particular diagram, which I've gotten from the URL at the bottom of the screen, does a great job of showing how you can use branching over time to manage the releases of a software project. This is especially useful if it's a public-facing project, like a product or a framework or an open source project. But you can also take advantage of a lot of these steps in even a project that you're working on as an individual. A typical branching strategy will have what's called a master branch, and that's basically your only branch if you aren't using any branches, and then you'll work from there. So in a scenario that's structured like this one is, you would have a master branch that only ever is used for releasable code that you're ready to ship. All of your actual work takes place in the develop branch, but it doesn't actually take place on the develop branch in most cases. It takes place in what are called feature branches. So if you look at this diagram, you've got the master on the far right with light blue circles. You've got the develop branch, which immediately is created because you're not going to do any work on master. And you might initially set up the project on the develop branch and get your solution in place and things like that. But then you start work on your first feature. At that point, you're going to create a branch for that feature, and that feature might be implement such and such, or fix a bug or something like that. At that point, you're going to be committing to that feature branch. And so if you look at the pink circles on the left, you can see there's a series of commits taking place there. When you complete a feature, then you're ready to merge it back into the develop branch. And so you would shift to develop and merge that feature branch. Once you've got enough features in place that you think you might want to do a release, then again, you don't immediately put it on master because it hasn't really been tested much yet. There might be a need for bug fixes or doing some additional merging with other features. So what you'll typically do is create what's called a release branch. And that release branch will have some name that corresponds with that release typically. So maybe it's beta 1 or beta 2 or version 1. And then that release branch you'll work on and stabilize and commit bug fixes. And that's what you can see with the green circles here. Once you're happy with the release, you would merge it into master, give it a tag that says what the version is typically, and that's how you would ship a new version of the software. The only time that you would otherwise be working on master without going through develop is if you look at the hotfixes column where there's a red circle. That would be an instance where you had to fix something quickly, so you just took a branch directly off master, fixed the bug, and then committed it right back to master. But that should be a rare occurrence because most of your bugs shouldn't be that critical and you should be able to fix them as part of your regular development cycle. So now let's take a look at how to do a quick kata using this approach. There's a kata out there called the string calculator. That's a TDD kata that you develop feature by feature. And so we'll do that right now real quick to show how this approach would work. So if you go out to github.com, Ardalis Kata Catalog, you'll find this there. And the instructions suggest that you don't read ahead or guess what is going to be next. You just start step by step. And we're going to demonstrate how to use the source tree tool to use branching as we do this. So let me bring up source tree real quick. And so here I'm looking at the state of this particular Git tips repository that I'm working in. And so the first thing we're going to do is create a new branch. And so I can do that. Let's go ahead and push this up. All right, so we're in master. Let's create a branch for dev. There's a few different ways you can do this. There's a branch button up here, so we can create a dev branch. And now we're on the dev branch. You can see from the little check mark. And for the dev branch, let's go ahead and use that to create the initial structure for this kata. So I'm going to go to my commit tab where I can get this open and explore item, bring this up, and because I wanted to save some time on the video, I already have the solution set up, so I'm just going to paste it in here. So now we've got a string calc kata folder pasted in. We'll come back to our commit tab and it should see that we've got some things to commit. And this will be our initial solution. Now, we don't have a branch on Origin. If we look at the branches that exist out on GitHub, this branch I just created just now. So we can tell it to go ahead and push this and create that branch. And it will do so, and then we can see now that out at GitHub we have this existing now at this point. On GitHub we can see now that we have the dev branch existing out here because we just did that push. But it's not in the master, which is the default, so you don't see that folder here yet. Until we merge it into master, it won't appear. To do a feature of that kata, we want to create a new branch. So we're going to work from dev, and just like that diagram showed, we're going to create a feature branch. So let's look at what our first item is we need to do, and that is to create something where an empty string is supported, and it says an empty string should return a sum of 0. So at this point, let's open up Visual Studio. And you can see we've got these two files that I already created. And we've got a string calculator. It's got an add method, just like the kata says it should. And we want to verify here with our tests what this thing is going to do. So we're going to create a test. We say string calculator add should return 0 given empty string. And we'll create a new calculator, and we'll say the result equals calc.add empty string, and we'll assert .are equal 0 result, and then we can run this test, and you can see it passes. So with that, we could say that we've completed this particular work. There's one problem with that though. We didn't actually create a branch yet. So that's a problem you may run into sometimes, is where you start doing some work before you've got the branch in place. In this case, I'm going to cheat and just commit it as is, and then we'll create a new branch for the next feature, because this one's was already done anyway. So we'll add one more commit here that says add support for empty string, and then we'll show how to do the branch for the next feature. And that is that we want to support numbers, and so if we have 0, 1, or 2 integers, these should return the sum of those numbers. So at this point now we're going to create a new branch, call it support numbers, and jump to it. You can see, because it's bold here, that we're on that branch. So then we can go and actually do some test-driven development. We can come in here and say public void return 1 given 1 as string, and that needs to be a test. And we can take this exact same code here and put it in here, except now we're going to give it a 1 and we're going to expect a 1, and we're going to run this test, and it fails because it's always returning 0. So now we can implement this, and we can say if not string dot is null or empty numbers. If we're following TDD, we'll do the simplest thing that could possibly work, and I think that's about it. And at that point it passes. Now our feature isn't really complete, so we don't want to merge everything in, but it's not a bad habit to get into, to commit with each test. So you could do a commit here that says, works with 1, let's say. And then you can jump back in and write the next test. And let's just say that we write a few more tests that we won't slow things down with writing. And we get to the point where we're done. Now we're ready to merge this back in. So then we'll come into our feature branch, and we're working in support numbers. We're going to say we're done with that. It works. We've got tests that pass. So we'll shift back to the dev branch, which does not have that feature built into it yet. And then we're going to merge support numbers into dev. And so from dev, we just want to right click on the thing we want to merge into and say yes. And now we've brought that into dev. We can push this change up. And if we're happy to release this and we say, okay, dev's good, let's go ahead and ship that on master as a release, you do the exact same thing. So you can go to master and say, I'm going to merge. Well, let's flip that around. I want to go to, there's two cases here. It can be valuable to merge master into dev if someone else has been making changes on master and you want to make sure that you can support those changes on your branch before you try and push them out to your master branch. It's always a good idea. Then you want to merge master into dev. And you should do that periodically just to make sure that you're not falling too far behind what's on master. In this case, nobody else has done anything to master since we had it, which you can see from the graph here. Nothing else has changed. So what we need to do to get our changes out on master is simply switch to the master branch and then merge dev. So now we're on master. We can go and merge what's on dev. And now master has everything locally. But you see we're 3 commits behind on origin, so we want to do a push now out to origin. And at this point we're done with support numbers, let's say. I realize that we didn't fully implement that feature, but we can delete this now because we no longer need it. You see it's still out on the origin. We can delete it there as well. Alright, so a helpful resource for this is there's a great article that included that diagram that kind of shows how you can do Git branching. I encourage you to check it out. And thanks for watching this quick video on Git branching.